Hello again, and happy mid, or I suppose late November. This has been a really fun and exciting month for me so far. If you saw my last video I posted about a week or so ago, I was doing a flip through of my latest journal. So it's this exact journal, but new and improved, I like to say, because it's the second time I have now created this and I have made improvements. There's been a few things inside this journal that I just have been honestly bored with. So I'm making some adjustments. You'll see throughout my videos that there have been multiple instances where I just completely covered the image or used creative papers or colorful papers or stickers, which is the whole point of this journal, is to be as creative as you desire. So all that to say, this latest journal that is out and is actually for sale on my website, if you want to go check that out, is much different than the one you see here. Anyhow, it's only November. We still have November and December to go in this journal, and I am excited to continue using this for the remainder of the year. And the card that I drew for this discussion today is Beyond Pleasure. When I think of beyond pleasure, I think of enjoying the material world and all that it has to offer, but ensuring that it's through moderation. And so that we aren't becoming either attached to or habituated to or reliant upon things of the material world, because they only provide momentary or temporary satisfaction. The only thing that can truly provide us lasting fulfillment and nourishment is connection and deep love for our souls and ourselves. In the Gita, it says, "Pleasures of the world have a beginning and end, and ultimately lead to misery. The wise do not seek happiness from them." And this verse points to the fact that everything in the material universe is transient. All physical things go through a similar process. They come into existence, they exist in a state of constant change and flux until they ultimately cease to be. And so this is also referred to as impermanence in the doctrines of Buddhism. And we're taught that the whole physical world is impermanent and it will never truly satisfy us. And I like to teach this through the lens of the koshas. And if you have been following my videos, there was a video I think it was last month, where I went a little bit deeper on each of the koshas. And when I think about this concept of beyond pleasure, where I go is to our intuitive body and also our bliss body. When we start to investigate our intuitive body, one of the things that I would like to bring into consciousness at this time is the kleshas, which are unconscious mental states. They cloud the mind and they manifest generally in unwholesome actions. So when we think about the material world and we think about attachment or addiction or temporary gratification or things that are sticky and intoxicating, this is where this concept comes to life, because this is showing us places where we can investigate what those attachments or even aversions are about, or where they're stemming from, or how we can move away from them. Maybe in a future video I will talk more about the kleshas. They are, in English, ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, and then clinging to life or the fear of death. And when I do this work with the koshas, I like to focus on two. So one being attachment and one being aversion. And the way that I offer this work to my clients is to really tune into what your attachments are, without judgment, but let's look at the things that you're attracted to, but potentially realize afterwards that it's not really serving your highest self. So I get them to list 2 or 3 things, like maybe it's some sort of food item. Maybe you're attached to having a dessert after your meal. Even if you're completely satisfied with your meal, you still have this craving for sugar. Maybe you're attached to it. So I would get my client to list that out, for example. And the question becomes, or the invitation becomes, how do we bring this thing toward moderation? The Gita does not teach that sensory pleasure and gratification are bad and should be avoided altogether. That's not what we're trying to attain here. Life on this planet, in our physical form, is an absolutely extraordinary opportunity to experience pleasure and to go on unique adventures. It should be enjoyed and appreciated. However, we should do so while remaining aware of how intoxicating these attachments can become. We suffer from chronic overstimulation in this day and age with the internet and smartphones and TVs and an endless amount of movies and shows and music. And there is not one moment of your day that couldn't be filled with some form of entertainment. And in fact, we've kind of allowed our brains to get really used to this as well. It's that dopamine hit after dopamine hit. But over time, what happens is that the dopamine hit actually gets a little bit more challenging to achieve. And so we get more attracted and more addicted to these external factors or motivating factors in order to feel, in order to connect with something that makes us feel good. So it has this coming back and back again, just like an addict. So just going back to that attachment, I'm just going to use this example of a piece of cake for dessert and the concept of moderation. Potentially having one piece of cake is a very beautiful experience that you can enjoy, but having 3 or 4 pieces of cake would be something that no longer serves you. And so when we're looking at these things, and insert thing here, like cake is maybe a bizarre example, but let's talk about social media then. Maybe 15 or 20 minutes of social media a day really scratches that itch for you and keeps you connected to your peers and your environment. But after an hour, an hour and a half or more, many people are spending hours and hours on social media a day, that it's no longer serving you, that you're feeling drained, that you're feeling disconnected from your environment and your peers. So really it's about being, first of all, present to the experience that you're having. Second of all, noticing and being intuitive to what is actually bringing you pleasure, what your true self is craving, right? And I'm always talking about this, your true self, your true self, your true self. The more that you get to know yourself, the more that you will understand and accept when something is no longer serving you. It becomes less of an addiction and more of a choice. And when we can be this mindful, we do not become habituated, addicted, or dependent upon these things, and we experience freedom from them. When we're addicted to them, we're in bondage. We become slaves to our physical desires, and it just feels like a never-ending suffering. Anything done excessively can become a poison and a problem. Even things that we would normally think are good for us. I have actually experienced this even within the spiritual world. People get so addicted to their practices and rituals that they become actually a burden on people, or they're no longer serving, or they're no longer allowing people to actually tune in to reality and what is manifest right in front of their eyes. And instead, they rely on the spiritual realm to be the thing that's leading their life. They're forgetting that they're human beings in this 3D world. To me, that's an attachment, that's imbalance. That also brings me to the second klesha that I touch on when we're talking about the intuitive body, and that's aversion. List 2 or 3 things. So this is like getting out your journal, maybe on the month end page where it says thoughts on the month, and you have this section that you can journal longer in. List 2 or 3 things that you would tend to avoid in your life. Maybe you're avoiding your own reality. Maybe you don't like being confronted. Maybe you avoid having difficult conversations. There's multiple things that we also avoid, or that we have aversions to in our life, where in fact, if we looked at those things, like maybe the shadow aspect of those things, it would actually bring us a lot of healing and a lot of growth. And so once we've had these things listed out, so just, you know me, I like to talk. So circling back to attachment, you've listed the 2 or 3 things, and aversion, you've listed the 2 or 3 things. You can ask yourself, with attachment, who am I without? Who am I without dessert every night? Who am I without sugar? Who am I without alcohol? Who am I without binge watching television? There's so many different things that we can tune into and tap into here. And it doesn't mean that that's what you have to be, but the experience and the invitation is to explore that, because in exploring that, you might find the version of you that has this thing in balance. And then when it comes to aversion, who am I if I move toward? So who am I if I move toward setting boundaries? Who am I if I move toward having difficult conversations with my loved ones? What would it feel like if I moved to those places from a place of honesty and trust? Who am I if I spoke my truth? So again, it's these invitations to explore and get to know yourself on an even deeper level. When we move into the bliss body within the koshas, I talk about joy a lot. My kind of like tagline is be in your joy, be in your joy. And when we think about joys, we can look at it from this angle of attachment and aversion or clashes as well, where we've got nurturing joys and we've got depleting joys. So even the things that bring you so much joy where you go, I'm not attached to this, I love it. This journaling, like I might have an attachment to journaling. So I think about when I'm journaling, this might be a silly example as well, but I'm going to go there. Is this serving me? Sometimes I journal so much that my hand actually starts to hurt, or my wrist starts to hurt, or I'm journaling and I'm not getting clarity, or I'm journaling because I feel like I should journal. Another example could be wine. I enjoy a glass of wine with friends. When I drink a bottle of wine, now that's a depleting joy. So you can look at these two different angles in your life and see where this conversation or where this exploration brings you. As always, thank you so much for listening to this little rant, and my next videos will be not only for the month of December, but also setting up my newest journal for the new year and all the rituals that come with that. So looking forward to sharing that with you all in the near future. Bye.